Hi, everybody. My name is Hannah. Welcome. I'm going to be chatting to you this afternoon for around 30 minutes on how we can teach our kids to become financially independent. It is a key component of everyone's retirement plan is that their children are able to stand on their own 2 feet. Yet, most of our kids aren't ready. And many of us don't know what we should be teaching them because there's this awareness that the tools that might have been appropriate for us perhaps aren't appropriate for them because the conditions are a lot different. But I'm going to chat to you about that. If you've got questions, pop them in the Q&A button below and we'll try and answer a couple at the end if we have some time. We're also recording today's session. So if you need to get a recording, a copy of that, you can, we'll get that sent to you. Today is just a general information of a general nature, but I'm going to try and give some practical examples that I have been exposed to or with working with the many children of my clients as I try and help them stand up financially. My name is Hannah. I am a chartered accountant, a financial advisor, the founder of Enable Me. We're qualified financial advisors, but we call ourselves financial personal trainers because our job is to help our clients be better and achieve more financially, whether that's get in control of their money, get mortgage free faster, grow wealth for retirement, or as it happens, help their kids become financially responsible. On average, we lift the savings rates of our clients by around 300% and get them mortgage free in 8 years, not 10, and try and create about $1 million worth of debt. Sorry, not debt, wealth, beg your pardon. And all of that is because we're trying to get our clients retirement ready. And there are some key assumptions with getting retirement ready. One is that you are mortgage free by the time you retire. And the other is that your children aren't a financial leech as your income starts to run out. I think it's really important to recognize that the conditions that our kids need to succeed in are different than the conditions we needed to succeed in and our grandparents. Even if you just look at the house and income ratios, in my grandparents' day, my granddad could buy a house at 20. If we use today's dollars, let's say he earned $50,000, the house only cost $100,000, right? It was only twice his annual income. If you go to my parents' generation, it was 4 times your annual income. And mine is about 5 times, and my kids, it's about 6 or 7 times their projected annual income. And so the things that our grandparents would say, which is if you delay your gratification and you spend less than you earn, you will be okay. They said that because it was true. But if you applied that logic today, there is no guarantee that you'll be okay. In fact, people say if you give up your avocado on toast, you'll be able to get onto the property ladder. What they fail to say is you'd have to give up avocado on toast every day for 19 years in order to save the deposit to get onto the property ladder. So when the conditions, I think as long as you weren't bad with money back in the day, you were going to be okay with the end. Whereas now, even if you're good with money, if you don't have a plan that you're executing on, you're unlikely to be okay in the end, and you're probably going to be stressed throughout the process anyway. So I wanted to respond to that when I wrote my book, From Pocket Money to Property. And when I spent some time understanding what are the challenges that our kids face. And the reality is, by the time they're 18, they need to be able to make some really big financial decisions. Yet most 18-year-olds sleepwalk towards student debt and other things that can make their life materially harder unless it's part of a well-considered plan. And so they've got to be able to make these decisions, but you're not just ready to make a financial decision. You have to have concepts or precepts that have been taught to you at different stages and lay it up so that you've got the right understanding before you make some of these calls. And that's what I tried to break down in my book, and I want to share with you now. So I'm going to talk about how we teach financial independence to our kids and how we make sure your financial future is secured and it's not at the expense of theirs, and vice versa. What are the strategies available to you, to your family, and whether a coach or whether some direct advice could be helpful. There's also a giveaway of one of the games that we encourage some of our clients to play with their kids. We've got one of those for the audience as well, which we'll give away at the end. So Okay, the bottom line is you want your kids to succeed. Of course you do. I've got an 11-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son. Of course I want them to succeed. But I don't want that to be at the expense of my own progress. And I think that getting the balance is right, but it does require some discipline, right? But the reality is most Kiwis, if we kind of go back to what are most Kiwis dealing with, well, 50% of Kiwis aren't even on track for retirement. So that's kind of your first problem. 56% of us are living paycheck to paycheck or not saving. Now, some of us are living well, paycheck to paycheck, but we're still not getting ahead at any particular rate. And 74% of Kiwis still worry about money. We know that 1 million parents are still supporting their adult children, and 25% of 18 to 34-year-olds are living at home still. When back in our day, we would have left home. I think I left home at 16. And there are genuine reasons for it. But one of the reasons you stay at home is that it is expensive anywhere else, right? But that comes at a cost because the kids aren't standing up financially. They're not learning any particular skills. You're probably just cushioning them from some realities. So if we start with the first principle, when it comes to your kids, I'm a believer that you attach your own oxygen mask first, financially speaking, before you help your kids. So what that means is you need to be in control with a plan, with your retirement sorted. Their financial future happens, or trying to firm up their financial future happens after you can say yes to that. Then we want to try and align some of their goals with yours. As a rough rule of thumb, I believe that you're going to need at least 2 investment properties as well as a mortgage-free home to fund your retirement and to help your kids. One of those properties is to fund your retirement, and the second property is earmarked. The growth on that is earmarked to help your kids onto their own property in the future, to pay off their student loan if they've got a student loan, to start a business or to invest. But they've got a wad of cash. Life is a whole lot easier when you've got a wad of cash. You need to have the right skills to grow that, but if you can start without being on the back foot, and the reason for that is when you are on the back foot, it takes so long to make any form of progress that you get disheartened and you lose hope. And that's one of the things we cannot afford for our kids to do as young adults or as adults. And obviously you want to teach them money habits and to develop a good money story. Now, the money story is what you tell yourself about your financial future, about your success. When it comes to money, what are the subliminal messaging that's going around in your mind? The family home, the family unit is the strongest influencer of the money stories you tell yourself, and your money story impacts your behavior, your psychology around money. And your behavior is the #1 indicator of what you're going to achieve financially. Nothing to do with income levels. We think if I just earn more money, I'll be okay. But I know firsthand that the more money you earn, the more you just kind of stretch your lifestyle. You don't actually translate that to progress. It is your behaviors that will take you forward. But we need to teach our kids these behaviors. So we're told that kids as young as 3 can grasp financial concepts like spending and saving. And some say that from 7 years old, kids' money habits are formed, fairly well formed. And your money habit is your tendency, right? It's, do you find it easier to spend or do you get excited by saving? That's kind of the spectrum. It's your money psychology. Do you like taking risks or having big goals, or do you prefer very steady goals? All this is telling us about your psychology around money. And there is a money story that underpins some of that as well. So when I'm working backwards with my clients, I'm working backwards from, well, I need my clients ready, these young adults, to purchase a property by 22. That's what I'm targeting for them. And I'm going to support them to buy an investment property. But before I get to that, I have to have laid foundations for that output to be a given. And it goes all the way back to, if you're 3 or 4, that's when you're teaching your kids about delayed gratification. I'm not convinced my kids have mastered that at all. And that's when people will tell you about a marshmallow, and if you don't eat the marshmallow, you're going to be successful later in life. That's not quite true, but let's go with it for the time being. When they're 5 to 9, That's when you're starting to introduce the idea of pocket money, saving, earning, making money. Too much emphasis is put on showing kids how to give and save and spend. Just as much emphasis should be on earning. The money's got to come from somewhere. This is when you're getting your kids to manage family outings, the costings of those, or even family holidays. I had my then 10-year-old son manage a little weekend away for us. He was in charge of the budget, and I said to him, whatever you don't spend, we'll split the difference. And I'd allowed for everything, like the petrol, the food, the activities, the accommodation. He was so tight. It was impressive. I think I lost some weight on the weekend. We weren't allowed to eat or buy anything. And I said to him, Cam, you are so good at this. Why don't you manage our next holiday? And he said, no, I want you to do it, Mum, so that we have fun. Because I'm more generous with the money. But so that's up to 10 years old, right? That's the age where you want to involve them in some of the financial decisions and just give them examples of how you manage budgets and how a project could run. Between 10 to 13, you're starting to overlay the pocket money, which is something you can earn, with a living allowance, which is something you manage. A living allowance is when you tally up what they might spend on their cell phone, their clothes, or certain activities, and you have them run the budget of that cost for the year. Topped up every quarter, but it's them that's running it. Then we want to overlay on that when they get to kind of 14 or 16. This is when we're starting to talk to them about the role earning money has on the type of lifestyle you have. This is when you're introducing, opening up the family finances. You're talking about your retirement plan and whether you're on track and what you're doing about it. Because the lesson we want the kids to take is you don't drift towards financial success. This goal is important to us, and we're taking steps and making choices to get there. That's something you want them to catch. Because 2 generations ago with our grandparents, they could afford to drift to financial success because there was nothing to spend money on. You couldn't access credit. Credit cards weren't even invented. Cafes weren't even a thing. You certainly couldn't have buy now and pay later. Consumerism wasn't a thing. And income to debt house prices were really, really close. And so the conditions were really favorable. It's a good day. Everything's good on a good day. It's just got progressively harder. And when things get harder, you're supposed to get better. But what tends to happen with this generation is they're actually worse. So you've got harder conditions, less equipped. And that's what you want to fix. One of the things I get my kids to do begrudgingly from them is I get them to do the grocery shop where we have menu planned for the week and they've got the items and they go to the supermarket. I've given them what we've allocated for food for the week. And again, I say if they come in under budget, we can split the difference. But I'm getting them, you're trying to get across some of these living skills that they don't catch unless they're doing. And then we're getting to the big stuff. When they're 16, we need to be talking about goal setting. So sure as heck, you better have a financial goal if you're going to tell them it's important. Teach them how to set goals, big goals. Teach them about taxes, about compound interest, about good debt, bad debt. Ask them or help them or get them talking to me or someone around what their income pathway is. Do not let them drift or sleepwalk to incurring 50 or 60 grand of student debt unless it is linked to a job at the end that they're going to like. That would be, well, it's damaging. It's damaging. And we see it in the UK where they've had 1,000% increase in 25-year-olds declaring themselves bankrupt because they've incurred so much debt up until that point. And the first, I guess the precursor for that was a student loan. Because when your first financial decision ultimately is to commit you to 50 grand of debt or whatever the case is, you don't really care if you have a little buy now, pay later, or a little bit of credit card debt because you've been anchored to such a large amount. And it is so dangerous when it comes to setting or influencing your financial behaviors. 16 to 18 is also when you're talking to your kids about your money mistakes, things you did wrong, things you have learned. Because it doesn't matter if you're good with money or not. If you're not good with money, that just means you need support to get the outcome that you need. Knowing that about yourself is very helpful. Self-awareness is one of the keys to financial success. And all that leads to getting them onto the property ladder in their early 20s. If we're talking about budgeting, kind of 101 principles, we want to teach them about want versus need, giving and earning. You want to set up budget spreadsheets or an app. I have a pocket money app for my 11-year-old where we've allocated chores with a value, and then she tallies that up. The quality of her chores are weak. But if it passes muster, then she gets, the app kind of calculates what she's entitled to, and that money gets transferred into her bank account. So it's quite cool. I'm a believer of being really open with your finances. And I know that sometimes we want to breast our cards and not share, sometimes if we're embarrassed, but I think that actually front-footing those conversations, especially if you're embarrassed, is really powerful, because the lesson is, just because you're not good, you shouldn't bother trying. The lesson is, if it doesn't come naturally to you, and for most of us, I would say it doesn't, who are you surrounding yourselves to get the outcome that you need? You know, I want to get fit. I want to run a marathon. I have a running coach. I want to lose weight. I have a dietitian. I want to learn the piano. I have a piano teacher. Like, wanting an outcome, being mildly talented is, for most of us, not enough to actually translate to the goal that you're wanting. Be open about your money tendencies, your lessons and your goals, and be open about how you're tracking to those goals. Make it fun. I think there are some really cool board games that's the lessons are really cool. Monopoly, Settlers of Catan, the cash flow game, or the rat race game. I really like that. The premise of that is it's all about getting out of the rat race so that you can start to get your money working for you harder, and it simulates life. Hactics is a board game that we want to give away to some of the people here, and Square One is the pocket money app that I've used. I think it's under construction at the moment. But anyway, make it fun, because that's also one of the hard things. Is back in the day, money was very tactile, and it's a lot easier to learn when you can touch, when you can see, you don't quite get that same excitement when you log onto a bank account. But understand your money story and the story your kids are picking up, because their success or failings start with your own. You want to understand your money beliefs, and you will have mindset around money, and that feeds into your money story, which then feeds into what you tell yourself around money and how you behave around money. And your money behaviors is it accounts for 80% of your financial outcome. So what's your mindset? Are you scarcity based, or are you fixed when it comes to money, or are you abundance or wealth? It's shaped by your childhood, your upbringing, personal experiences, friends, education. Understanding what you are and what you aren't is so critical to fast tracking financial results or anything. Because earning money does not translate to more progress. It should, you'd think it should, but it doesn't, because the more money you earn, it gives you permission to not worry about money instead of doing the smartest thing with money. And we believe at Enable Me that financial success is 80% behavior, and that behavior influences your strategy, and your strategy accounts for 20%. So it starts with your money personality. Do this for yourself, and then think about your kids, because depending on where their personality sits, they will have tendencies that make some things easier to do or not. If you're a shopper, that's at one end, the saver's at the other. A shopper is someone who finds it easy to spend money. A saver is someone who doesn't. They actually find it hard to spend money. A saver enjoys saving. Like, if you're a saver, without a doubt, that is an advantage. But if you're a shopper, telling the shopper to spend less money doesn't motivate them, and they probably won't even do it. So we've actually got to work out, well, how do we engage a shopper? Because you're predisposed a particular way. I'm a shopper, so I know exactly how we work. We're not illiterate with money. I would say I'm financially literate. I'm financially confident. I just enjoy spending money. It doesn't have to be on myself. I like to be generous, because shoppers do tend to be generous. But that's me. My husband's a tightwad. It works. Then we go to, what's your approach to risk and ambition? Are you safety conscious? Are you an adventurer, ambitious, or are you a dreamer? If you're often a saver, this is where it gets interesting. A saver, on one hand, is an advantage, but it's also accompanied with a really low tolerance to risk. And so they They need to get their money working harder, and they've got more money to do that, but they stop at that point. So they had an advantage and then they lose it. Whereas the shopper is, they're useless at saving. They can save, but they need a reason to save. And in the absence of a reason, then they just feel like they can spend. So for a shopper, it's so important that they have big, ambitious financial goals that really excite them. And a dreamer is someone who believes that the universe will provide and it will be okay in the end. So they're painful. Then we need to understand what's your willpower or your level of motivation to act around your financial goals, because everyone wants to be financially successful, yet very few people are. And it's not because they don't want it. They've got kind of the willpower, but willpower is a muscle that gets fatigued each day. So you've got to work out, well, how do I stack the deck to my advantage? And again, it comes down to your tendencies. And assess this for your kids as well. So are you an upholder? Are your kids upholders, questioners, obligers, or rebels? An upholder is someone who, when they set a goal for themselves, they ignore all other obligations. So a high achiever is often an upholder. But you can be a high achiever in life, but not a high achiever with your finances or even with your health, right? So it's about trying to work out, how do we elevate that goal for you? A rebel is someone who doesn't appreciate goals being given and they don't set goals for themselves. So it's sort of your typical teenager and you hope they grow out of it and you pity the fool that marries them. But if you're a financial rebel, that's dangerous. And then you've got a questioner, someone who gets confidence from asking lots of questions and kind of going down different routes, or obligers. Now, most of us are obligers, where we find it easier to put other people's objectives ahead of our own. So an example, like, I want to be a good parent, I want to be a good partner, I want to be fit and healthy, all these things, and be financially successful, yet my day can be given to things not connected to that at all. So those are kind of my rocks, but at the end of the day, I've just got nothing left to give them. And so what's important is, if you've got a rock that you're not getting around to, you've got to elevate it and become accountable to someone else, which is why clients would work with us from a coaching perspective, or why young adults would work with us from a coaching perspective, because they're wanting to ensure they focus on the right things and keep coming back to focusing on the right things. What we find is that most families fritter around 15% of their income. Irrespective of what you earn, 15% will be inefficient. You'll be spending too much on your mortgage will be structured incorrectly, your KiwiSaver won't be quite right, or your insurances will be a bit weird, or if you're self-employed, you're probably paying too much in tax, and then you're not bad with any of those things. Those are just structural things, but a good chunk of your income is getting lost or wasted with those things. So typically we want to remove the fritter, and with combining that effort with a plan and structure that has guardrails and targets and accountability, we can lift your savings rate by 300%, which is incredible. And that savings rate then gets channeled into your mortgage, and the mortgage then gets paid off faster. And because we're getting you mortgage free faster, we're saving you interest on that mortgage. And we're creating equity, and we're going to repurpose that equity and buy an investment property. And we're going to do all those three things at the same time. And what our kids need to be able to do is to execute on multiple strategies at the same time. And they're either going to learn that from you, or I don't know who they're going to learn it from, unless you are deliberate with how we apply that. And the surplus you're creating, it creates options, it improves your security, it reduces anxiety, it removes financial stress from relationships, it improves productivity, it solves a problem, it allows you to be ambitious, allows you to help your kids if you have a cash surplus, but it also sorts your own retirement. So I think creating financially independent kids goes hand in hand with sorting your own retirement. And that if you haven't got your retirement sorted, or you yourself are not applying the rigor needed to get there, you can't expect your kids to learn from your actions. Because, they'll do what you say until about 10. And then if you're going to be hypocritical, they're going to call you on it. And you want them to call you on that generally. Like in life, you want them to call out people who are saying one thing and doing another. It's uncomfortable when it's the mirror's pointed back to you. But that's a good skill, doing that, calling out hypocrisy. I think the idea is you want them to just learn the right behaviors, so you should be applying them yourself. So if we work backwards from, we need you to be able to retire. Well, what do you need to retire? Typically, you need to be mortgage free and you need to have saved about 25 years of your living costs. You need about $1 million in savings. Now, 40% of that is going to come from your KiwiSaver fund that you're contributing to and your employer is contributing to. But where is the difference coming from? That's what your wealth strategy needs to address. And are you getting mortgage free faster? Because if I can get you mortgage free faster than what you're doing at the moment, I've got more time to save for retirement. And then we also, at the same time, those lessons, if caught by your kids, will start creating what's the mindset of what is needed to become financially independent as a young adult. I'm all about bringing the kids on the journey. So for example, if we can buy an investment property and they're old enough to be part of that process, I want them part of that process, learning with us, learning about good debt and bad debt. That's probably the single most important thing they do need to learn, because they're going to have to master leverage in their lifetime. And the sooner they master leverage, the faster they're going to be able to grow their wealth. I think your ability to get to being able to help your kids has meant you've taken care of yourself first. The kids are going to learn through observation or through you being deliberate in what you're saying. And look, I'm all for providing a safety net, but let's not let it be a hammock, right? If you do want to have a session with one of our coaches who are amazing, they will tell you if you're on track for retirement. They'll tell you what your gap is, and they'll tell you how to close it out with a proactive plan that they will support you to execute on clinically. I believe money should be mastered. It's not emotional. It's not good or bad. Money helps you live a lifestyle you enjoy. It should. But you've got to be thinking about the future as well as today. So what's the strategy to get that balance right for you? If you do want a consultation, you can pop in with that card and qualify for a discount. You just need to redeem it in the next day. And then we're going to have the board game drawer. Do you want to go through that, Jess? Oh, Olivia?
Yes, so we have one lucky winner of the Haptics board game, which is designed for kids 11 to 17 years old. And the winner is Belinda Giles. Belinda, we will email you after this webinar today with the details. Hannah, we do have a couple of quick questions. Someone wanted to know, what is the budgeting money app you use?
I use Square One. And I also use MoneyFit. So MoneyFit's what we use for our clients here. So that's sort of more cash flow tracking and trying to build up your annual surplus and see where you're tracking to that across the year. So that's one thing. For pocket money management, I use Square One. But when I went to look at it yesterday, it said that it was under construction. So maybe it will be up and running in the next week or so, but it's a goodie.
Great, thanks, Hannah. We just have time for 2 more questions. First one is, I would love to know the pros and cons of giving kids pocket money, and at what age?
I think you introduce pocket money from 6 or 7, and it's $1 to $2 for every year of their life. So if they're 5 years old, you might give them between maybe $5 a week. But as they get perhaps closer to 10 years old, you might be giving them $20 a week. But they are doing jobs for that money, and you're also encouraging them to save a portion of that money. So my rule with my kids is whatever you earn, no matter how you earn it, you save a minimum of 25%. So they've got to earn their jobs, earn the money from doing jobs, and we want them to save it. What pocket money is teaching them is the income coming in and the money and how you're going to manage it. That's that component. The next layer is how you introduce allowances, which is different. They can't get more allowance, and allowance is based on a set of costs they need to pay for. So it's preset what the allowance is and what it's to cover. Now that's different. You introduce that from around 12 or 13. So it's those two things coming together. And then you start to layer it from there.
Thanks, Hannah. And at what age would you give them cash versus an EFTPOS card?
Yeah, I mean, I hate digital anything with kids. Cash is so much more effective for them to learn. However, society is becoming more and more cashless, and we need to teach our kids to be able to thrive in that new form of currency, I guess. So my 11-year-old has just gotten a debit card, which is connected to the bank account that her pocket money is paid into.
Thanks, Hannah. We'll leave to you to wrap up.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I hope you got something that was of benefit to you. We've got to get them through the other side safely. That's the first thing. Financially competent is the next thing, and then financially independent comes after that. Thank you for having me. Take care.